Good evening. Tonight we begin with something as shocking as it is destabilizing for Russia's internal security and global geopolitical balance. A massive and unprecedented drone assault has targeted the private residence of President Vladimir Putin, sending shockwaves through Moscow and capitals around the world. According to multiple intelligence sources, hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles breached Russian airspace and converged on the most heavily guarded location in the country. The scale, coordination, and precision of the attack represent a dramatic escalation in the shadow war against the Russian state and raise urgent questions about the future of global security. Initial reports indicate that the drone swarm overwhelmed several layers of Russian air defenses surrounding the presidential residence. While the Kremlin has released only limited information, leaked assessments from security agencies suggest that the attack was not symbolic, but strategic. The operation appears designed to demonstrate that even the heart of Russian power is no longer untouchable. Analysts warn that this event could mark a turning point, comparable to historic security failures that reshaped global power dynamics. Russian authorities immediately placed the country's security apparatus on the highest alert level. Emergency meetings were convened within the Kremlin, and military units were redeployed across Moscow and surrounding region. Intelligence officials described the situation as a direct challenge to the authority of the Russian state. The message sent by the attackers is clear. If the residence of the president can be reached, no strategic asset is truly secure. This is no longer an abstract threat. The attack has shattered the long-standing perception of invulnerability surrounding Russia's leadership. For years, the Kremlin has projected an image of absolute control, supported by layered defenses, elite security forces, and advanced surveillance systems. The drone assault has exposed potential cracks in that system, raising fears of further attacks not only against political leaders, but against critical infrastructure and military command centers. According to preliminary intelligence leaks, the drone operation was executed in multiple phases. The first phase focused on saturating Russian air defense systems, forcing them to engage numerous targets simultaneously. The second phase involved more advanced drones penetrating deeper into restricted zones, reportedly reaching areas in close proximity to Putin's residence. Security officials believe the operation required extensive planning, real-time intelligence, and sophisticated command and control capabilities. The strategic implications are profound. Russian military planners are now reassessing the vulnerability of high-value targets across the country. Energy facilities, communication hubs, and command infrastructure are being placed under enhanced protection. The attack has also triggered concerns about copycat operations and the potential normalization of direct strikes against political leadership using unmanned systems. Inside the Kremlin, the mood is described as tense and deeply unsettled. Sources close to the Russian leadership say the attack has intensified internal debates over security failures and countermeasures. Some factions are calling for sweeping retaliatory actions, arguing that restraint would only invite further attacks. Others urge caution, warning that an aggressive response could spiral into a broader conflict with unpredictable consequences. The drone assault has also intensified fears regarding escalation beyond conventional boundaries. Russian military doctrine places significant emphasis on deterrence and strategic signaling. An attack so close to the president's residence may be interpreted as an existential provocation. Analysts warn that such perceptions could lower the threshold for extreme responses, including cyber retaliation, covert operations abroad, or even strategic weapons signaling. International reactions have been swift. Governments around the world are monitoring developments closely, aware that instability at the core of Russian leadership could have far-reaching effects. Diplomatic channels are reportedly active behind the scenes as global powers attempt to assess responsibility for the attack and prevent uncontrolled escalation. Markets have reacted nervously, with energy prices fluctuating amid fears of renewed instability. One of the most alarming aspects of the incident is the apparent sophistication of the drone swarm. Intelligence assessments suggest the attackers employed autonomous coordination, electronic countermeasures, and complex flight patterns designed to confuse radar and interception systems. This level of capability raises serious concerns about the proliferation of advanced drone warfare and the ease with which such systems could be used against high-profile targets worldwide. Russian security services are now conducting sweeping investigations. Air defense commanders, intelligence officers, and regional security chiefs are under intense scrutiny. The attack has prompted a reassessment of Russia's domestic security posture, with particular focus on drone detection, electronic warfare readiness, and rapid response coordination. The possibility that insiders or external actors provided intelligence support is also being investigated. The psychological impact of the attack cannot be overstated. Within Russia, state media is attempting to downplay the severity of the incident, emphasizing control and stability. However, unofficial reports and social media speculation have fueled public anxiety. For many observers, the attack symbolizes a dangerous erosion of deterrence norms and a new era in which political leaders themselves become direct targets. Strategic analysts warn that this event may accelerate an already dangerous trend. Drone technology, once limited to battlefields, is increasingly being used as a tool of political pressure and strategic intimidation. The attack on Putin's residence demonstrates how asymmetric tactics can bypass traditional defenses and deliver powerful symbolic blows without deploying conventional forces. As Russian leadership weighs its options, the world waits anxiously. A forceful response could deter future attacks, but it could also trigger retaliation and escalation across multiple domains. A restrained response, on the other hand, risks projecting weakness at a moment when perceptions of strength are central to deterrence. What is clear is that this attack has fundamentally altered the strategic landscape. The assumption that national leaders can be fully shielded by geography and technology has been shattered. The implications extend far beyond Russia, forcing governments worldwide to reconsider how they protect their leadership and critical institutions in an age of rapidly evolving threats. The coming days will be critical. Decisions made behind closed doors in Moscow may determine whether this incident remains an isolated shock or becomes the opening chapter of a far more dangerous confrontation. As investigations continue and defenses are reinforced, one question dominates global discourse. If hundreds of drones can reach the residence of one of the most powerful leaders in the world, what does that mean for the future of global security? As the shockwaves from the drone assault continue to ripple outward, Russia's military and intelligence institutions are now operating under extreme pressure. The attack on President Putin's residence has forced an urgent reassessment of Russia's national security doctrine, particularly its ability to defend against asymmetric and technologically sophisticated threats. Senior officials described the incident as the most serious breach of internal security in modern Russian history. According to newly surfaced intelligence briefings, Russian air defense systems were not simply overwhelmed by numbers, but deliberately neutralized through coordinated electronic interference. Analysts believe the attackers employed signal jamming, decoy drones, and adaptive flight algorithms that adjusted routes in real time. This suggests access to advanced capabilities previously believed to be limited to major state actors, raising fears that the line between state and non-state warfare is rapidly dissolving. Within hours of the attack, Russia's Strategic Command reportedly ordered a nationwide security lockdown. Sensitive military installations were placed on maximum alert, and additional missile defense units were redeployed to protect leadership sites. Sources indicate that Russia's nuclear forces were also quietly placed on heightened readiness, not as an immediate prelude to escalation, but as a signal that the state remains prepared to defend itself under any circumstances. This development has alarmed international observers. A sudden shift in Russia's strategic posture introduces new risks into an already fragile global security environment. Diplomatic missions across Europe, Asia, and North America are now actively assessing whether the drone attack could trigger a cascade of retaliatory actions, miscalculations, or unintended escalation between nuclear-armed powers. The Kremlin is facing mounting pressure to respond decisively. Hardline elements within Russia's security establishment argue that failure to retaliate would embolden adversaries and invite further attacks. These voices are calling for covert operations abroad, cyber offensives against perceived enemies, and a dramatic tightening of internal security control. Others within the leadership warn that a disproportionate response could ignite a cycle of escalation that Russia may struggle to control. At the same time, the attack has exposed vulnerabilities in Russia's internal defense architecture. Despite years of investment in layered air defenses and electronic warfare systems, the drone swarm managed to penetrate deeply into restricted airspace. Military analysts are now questioning whether existing systems were designed to counter high-volume, low-cost, autonomous threats rather than traditional aircraft and missiles. The implications extend beyond Russia's borders. Governments worldwide are reevaluating their own defenses against drone warfare, recognizing that what happened in Moscow could happen anywhere. Presidential residences, government buildings, and military headquarters are being reassessed as potential targets in an era where unmanned systems can be launched discreetly and at scale. Intelligence agencies are also racing to determine responsibility for the attack. While no actor has claimed involvement speculation is rampant. Some analysts suspect a highly capable state adversary seeking to test Russia's defenses and send a strategic message. Others believe the operation may have involved a network of proxy groups supported by advanced technology and intelligence sharing. The lack of clarity only heightens the risk of misattribution and overreaction. The psychological impact on Russia's leadership is significant. The attack has shattered assumptions about personal security at the highest level of power. Security protocols surrounding the president have reportedly been rewritten overnight, with movements restricted and additional protective measures implemented. This sudden tightening of control reflects a deeper sense of vulnerability that could influence decision-making in unpredictable ways. State-controlled media has moved quickly to frame the incident as a contained and unsuccessful provocation. However, behind the scenes, officials acknowledge that the symbolic damage may be more severe than any physical destruction. The mere fact that hundreds of drones reached the vicinity of Putin's residence undermines the narrative of absolute control that the Kremlin has carefully cultivated for decades. Strategists warn that symbolism matters deeply in international politics. An attack on a leader's residence is not just a security breach, it is a statement. It signals that deterrence thresholds are shifting and that traditional red lines may no longer hold. This raises concerns that future conflicts could increasingly target political leadership as a means of coercion. As Russia weighs its next steps, cyber retaliation remains a likely option. Intelligence experts believe Moscow may seek to respond asymmetrically, using cyber operations to disrupt infrastructure, communications, or financial systems linked to suspected adversaries. Such actions would allow Russia to project strength while avoiding immediate kinetic escalation, though the risk of retaliation would remain high. Meanwhile, internal security measures are tightening across Russia. Drone restrictions have been expanded, airspace controls intensified, and surveillance increased in major cities. These measures, while aimed at preventing further attacks, may also deepen domestic tensions and raise questions about civil liberties at a time of heightened fear and uncertainty. The international community remains on edge. Allies and rivals alike are closely watching how Russia responds, aware that its actions could set new precedents in global security behavior. A restrained response could signal a desire to stabilize the situation, while an aggressive move could push the world closer to a dangerous confrontation. As investigations continue and strategic calculations unfold, one reality is becoming increasingly clear. The era in which political leaders could rely solely on traditional defenses is coming to an end. The drone attack on Putin's residence represents a profound shift in the nature of power, vulnerability, and deterrence in the modern world. The coming hours and days will be decisive. Russia's response will not only define its own security posture, but also influence how states worldwide adapt to the growing threat of autonomous and asymmetric warfare. The world now waits to see whether this unprecedented attack will remain an isolated shock or become the catalyst for a far more volatile chapter in global geopolitics. As the situation continues to unfold, the drone assault on President Putin's residence is increasingly being viewed not as an isolated security incident, but as a defining moment in modern warfare. Senior analysts now describe the event as a clear signal that the rules governing conflict, deterrence, and political security have fundamentally changed. The traditional separation between battlefield and homeland has effectively collapsed. Behind closed doors, Russia's highest decision-making bodies are reportedly engaged in intense deliberations. The question dominating these discussions is not only how to respond, but how to restore credibility. For a state that has long relied on perceptions of strength, control, and deterrence, the attack represents a profound strategic shock. Restoring that perception may now be as important as addressing the physical security breach itself. Military planners are examining a range of response options, each carrying significant risks. A visible military retaliation could reaffirm Russia's resolve, but risks international backlash and escalation. A covert response through cyber operations or clandestine actions abroad offers plausible deniability but may fail to satisfy domestic demands for strength. A restrained response focused on internal security reforms could reduce immediate risks but may be interpreted as weakness by adversaries. The potential for miscalculation is growing. With heightened alert levels, increased military readiness, and intensified surveillance, the margin for error has narrowed dramatically. History shows that moments of extreme tension often produce unintended consequences. A single misinterpreted signal, cyber incident, or defensive reaction, could escalate rapidly beyond the control of political leaders. Internationally, the attack has triggered a reassessment of global stability. World leaders are increasingly concerned that the normalization of drone swarms targeting political leadership could lead to a dangerous cycle of retaliation. If such tactics become widely adopted, no capital, no leader, and no command center would be immune. This realization is forcing a reconsideration of long-standing norms that once limited how and where conflicts were fought. Energy markets, financial institutions, and global supply chains are already responding to the uncertainty. Investors fear that any major escalation involving Russia could disrupt energy flows, destabilize currencies, and trigger broader economic shockwaves. Governments are quietly preparing contingency plans, aware that geopolitical instability at this level rarely remains contained. Within Russia, the political ramifications are significant. The attack has intensified internal scrutiny of security institutions and may deepen existing tensions within the elite. While public messaging emphasizes unity and control, reports suggest that trust within the system has been shaken. Such internal dynamics could influence Russia's external behavior in unpredictable ways. The incident has also emboldened debates within military and strategic communities worldwide. Defense planners are accelerating efforts to develop counter-drone systems, electronic warfare capabilities, and new doctrines for leadership protection. At the same time, there is growing concern that defensive measures alone may not be sufficient in a world where offensive drone technology is rapidly advancing and becoming more accessible. One of the most troubling implications is the erosion of strategic red lines. An attack on a head of state's residence would once have been considered unthinkable. Its occurrence now raises questions about what boundaries still exist and whether future conflicts will increasingly target symbols of power rather than traditional military objectives. As Russia approaches a critical decision point, the global community remains on edge. Diplomatic channels are active, but fragile. Efforts to de-escalate coexist with preparations for worst-case scenarios. The balance between deterrence and restraint has rarely been more delicate. The coming days may determine whether this incident becomes a catalyst for new international agreements on drone warfare and leadership protection, or a precedent that accelerates a descent into a more volatile and dangerous world. Much depends on how Russia chooses to respond and how other powers interpret and react to that response. What is undeniable is that the attack has changed perceptions forever. The image of invulnerability surrounding the highest levels of power has been shattered. In its place is a new reality defined by uncertainty, technological disruption, and shifting norms of conflict. As the world watches Moscow, one question dominates strategic thinking across capitals. If the residence of a nuclear-armed superpower's leader can be reached by hundreds of drones, how stable is the global order that has governed international relations for decades? The answer to that question may soon become clear. Decisions made now will echo far beyond Russia, shaping the future of warfare, deterrence, and global security for years to come. The clock is ticking, and history may already be turning.